Let's start with prayer. No, I don't volunteer.
I love that definition of volunteer. Oh, Lord, thanks for bringing us together again. Thanks for bringing us together for a new year. Try to study and share and grow. So we ask for your blessing. Conversations.
So this is the format that we'll use. The first page will be a highlight, really. The second page will be the questions that we'll use. And the third will be the readings. And some of those questions will say, read this, and then discuss it. So this is a good discussion format. That means somebody's got to read the summary for chapter 1. All right, thanks.
The picture in the back. Edmund and Lucy are staying with their modern aunt and uncle who have a son named Eustace. He never reads good stories and enjoys irritating Edmund and Lucy. One such day, when Lucy and Edmund are admiring the picture of a ship that reminds them of Narnia, Eustace will start mocking them, and as that happens, they are magically pulled up into the picture and find themselves in the cold water. They are up to the ship and discover their friend King Caspian. Eustace is obnoxious to the people on the ship, especially to the mouse with a cheek.
Chapter 2, King Caspian tells of his mission to find 7 missing lords, and Reaper Chief tells his mission to travel to the other east. Those that the prophecy stated as perfect. Where sky and water meet, where waves grow sweet, doubt not, Reaper Chief, find all that you seek there in the other east. Eustace continues his obnoxious behavior and is frustrated because of the storm and his irritation with Reaper Chief. One day, while Reaper Chief is staring into the waters, Eustace grabs his tail and spins him around. Reaper Chief is able to grab his sword and attack Eustace, and who takes Reaper Chief aside. Eustace is made to apologize.
Okay, reactions.
I love the unique setup in the picture. And it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough way to get into Narnia. You know?
Yeah.
You know, there's the Lord's Road, it just kind of walks in, and at the sitting at a train station and kind of pulled into the woods, and these guys, cold water.
Yeah.
Then, geez.
I like that, I mean,
Yeah, so I had to get changed before. I had a hands to get to a phone call, so
Here, would you pour it right here?
I'll probably step it out. I'll probably have to step out. Thanks. Hello, the books.
You just read the 2 summaries,
Oh, okay.
so let's quickly reread.
Oh, thank you.
What?
Somebody, just reread the summary.
the chapter 1. Edmund and Lucy are staying with their modern aunt and uncle who have a son named Eustace. He never reads good stories and enjoys irritating Edmund and Lucy. On one such day when Lucy and Edmund are admiring a picture of a ship that reminded them of Narnia, Eustace started mocking them, and as that happened, they are magically pulled into the picture and find themselves in the cold water. They are helped up to the ship and discover their friend King Caspian. Eustace is obnoxious to the people on the ship, especially to the mouse, Reaper Chief.
Chapter 2.
And Caspian tells his mission to find 7 missing lords. Reaper Chief tells his mission to travel to the utter east because of the prophecy stated at his birth. Where sky and water meet, where the waves grow sweet, doubt not be achieved to find all that you seek there in the utter east. Eustace continues his obnoxious behavior and is frustrated because of the storm and his irritation with the Reepicheep. One day while Reepicheep is staring into the water, Eustace grabs the tail and spins him around, but Reepicheep is able to grab his sword and attack Eustace. The group takes Reepicheep's side, and Eustace is made to apologize. Interesting.
The one thing that always stands out for me in this is Lewis says he read the wrong books. And as a literature person, you know, we talk about aesthetic reading versus effluent reading. Aesthetic is when you literally live through the lives of the characters, you feel their pain. And even though you never had such an experience, because you aesthetically read, you experience it through them. Where the other type, effort, is memorization, rote, fact learning, and both are necessary. But if it's only one-sided, and this is what he's saying about the Eustace character, that he's into information, knowing information. And with that in mind, let's read question 1 on the next page.
What reaction did you have to Lewis's first sentence, which, by the way, you won an award for?
Yes, he did.
As an opening of the children's story. The sentence is, there was a boy called Eustace Clarence Scrooge, and he almost deserved it. I was telling Mary this morning, I kind of have the feeling there's a hint of autobiography here, because he had 5 staples. Lewis, give me a break. So he called himself Jack the whole time, for the first, everybody knew it was Jack.
Right.
And when he was a toddler,
Oh, yeah, it was 3.
they had a dog named Jax. And as a toddler, he turned to his parents and said, "Me, Jax," and wouldn't answer if they called him Clyde.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
They're very strong-minded.
Very, that's it.
Strong-willed.
And the second thing, it takes you back to that reading. He was an obsessive learner. And the reason is he didn't socialize well as a child. And so he became pretty arrogant as a child, and kept that arrogance until he converted. Yes, he
And I would imagine even after he converted, it rooted something in it quite a few. It's hard to get into the mind of somebody that brilliant, but you gotta figure he's gonna be pretty bored of most of the things that go on around him, so it's
and I think that God has such a beautiful way of using time. Had he not been that, he wouldn't have become the learner that he was. And I mean, he was considered the genius of his time. And spent a lot of time convincing people that atheism was the way to be. And so he literally walked that step logically. And then what was it there?
He converted by the time he was a young one, that right?
He converted at 29.
29.
He converted to God. He believed in God. He didn't convert to Christianity till the age of 31. And he spent those 2 years intently studying everything. And believe it or not, he got it down to Hinduism and Christianity for the last two. And it's more die to live, that he connected with that.
So he got it down to Hinduism and
Mhm.
Yeah.
very radically different,
Yes,
a lot of reincarnation stuff.
Yes.
Mhm.
all right, are you ready? This is question 2 is one of my favorites. Somebody, read
Experiment and criticism. We actually quoted this in
one of our articles.
book.
Oh,
My own eyes are not enough.
Where's that,
Next page.
Did you get a page in?
it said, see, he didn't read the question. John, read the question. Someone please read text 1. And that's on the 3rd page. And it's taken from experiment and criticism.
See the trouble of reading.
All right, go ahead, read your one.
Why you just read it. Here it is. My own eyes are not enough for me. I will see through those of others. Reality, even seen through the eyes of many, is not enough. I regret that the brutes cannot write books. Very gladly that I learned what face things present to a mouse or a bee. But in reading great literature, I become 1,000 men and yet remain myself. Like the night sky in the Greek poem, I see with a myriad eyes, but it is still I do see. Here, as in worship and love and moral action and in knowing, I transcend myself. I am never more myself than when I do.
To me, that last sentence is just grabs me.
I love it. It does say a lot about Jack,
Mhm.
but it does say a lot about like transforming yourself,
Mhm.
yourself into the characters
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
pouring yourself into the book.
Mhm.
you just see through the eyes of the character. We all had the experience of reading with a flashlight under the covers because you just had to find out. You had to just find out what was happening there. And that's classic aesthetic reading.
Mhm.
But I love the part about the mouse and the bee. That would be kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To see the world as they see it.
Because you could see him seeing Reepicheep. You know, Reepicheep is just, he's cute, but he's also very proud. And Oswald has to put him in his place. You know, but it's sort of like Jesus when the sons of thunder wanted to go kill. Eustace was ready with that sword ready to go. The thing I love is we transcend ourselves. And to me, transcending has a dimension of transformation. Because I've been transformed when I lived through somebody else's life. I always give the experience of living through, I was very far right, you can go. And being gay was a sin. And I shall never forget, I started college teaching at Lincoln University. And I was on a committee, and this gentleman said, "Mary, can we have lunch?" And he says, "Mary, I hear you think being gay is a choice." He said, "Let me tell you this. My father is a Black minister, and in the Black world, gay is detestable. And my father had me come up, so he put hands on me to pray. And he prayed and prayed. Mary, I prayed. I did not, he said, look at here, I'm a black man, which already puts me lower than others. Now I'm gonna even go lower by choice. That transcended into me. And it, it changed, it helped me learn and reject the concept that had been pretty strong in my teaching. And I think that is really what happens in reading. We really can, I was reading, but
Would Lewis have been influenced at all by transcendentalism? Who was it, Emerson, Thoreau, and those transcendentalists that were in
Russell, yes,
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So
He
this-
he had a reputation for reading everything
Mhm,
and never forgetting it.
yeah.
So he would be
Mhm.
very much.
Yes.
Transcendence was part of his,
Right.
Yeah.
part of this idea of transformation.
anything else there with that question?
I always had that vivid experience of very gladly what I learned of face things present of master to be. I actually I had read some Richard Rohr and his respect for living things. And Mary and I were having a glass of wine out on the patio. And I raised the glass to drink it, and there's this dead insect floating in. So I fished him out with my little finger and just took a look at his son, and he wasn't dead. So I looked at him close, I could see the physiological structure. It was pretty amazing, and I thought, if I hadn't been here, he would have drowned and he would never achieved full napdom, So I put him down, he started to move, and I put him down on the table, couldn't fly yet, it's too wet. In the meantime, Mary was inside somewhere, she came out, picked up her glass of wine, she had 2 gnats. And she said, these damn gnats are.
Sound dead.
I'm still traumatized. I hadn't gone to the point of giving him a name yet, but I
was reading something yesterday about this person who's gardening, and they're out there, and the ants were moving around, and one of the ants was crawling up the leg, so he very gently took a leaf, scooped him off his leg, put him away, and crawled back up his leg again. Did the same thing this time, scooped him up, put him even further. That same ant came back and crawled up his leg, and the writer was saying, I had to pause and wonder if this ant wanted to say something to me, because he was determined to come and be in my presence. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. You don't know, right?
Right.
And I can only speak and talk.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good story.
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Just a,
Right, if
but
it's
just a
not-
digression of it. I listened to Richard Rohr on podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been a while. It's a couple of years ago, he was one of the podcasts, and he was good. I really enjoyed listening to him. But I have not read any Richard Rohr. You're recommending.
I will send it to you. He has a daily devotion. We read it.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That's good.
I think yeah, he's got a couple of stories that showed his nature.
Yes,
He's very much a mystic, which is
Yeah.
kind of, he is a mystic.
yes. And he's heavy, Thomas Merton,
Mhm.
and we love Thomas,
Yeah.
especially his No Man is an Umbrella.
Mhm.
That's
Oh, we read that, that's part of our mornings.
That's neat.
yes. I'm gonna skip 3 just because I don't want us to have question 4 says, think about the characters. How significant is the concept of perceptions in this story so far? So we have,
Significant,
Yeah.
I think for the perceptions of Eustace are completely different than the perceptions of like or kids in the family.
yes, so, we have Lucy and Evan.
Yeah,
So their perceptions of the picture are that it is a reminder of a place where they have once been. And to him, they are, irritating.
right.
And so the picture to him is meaningless.
He didn't, that's, I thought, I forgot, and reread the first chapter, and he was like, he remembered visiting the previous year.
Yes.
Then the previous year that they had the same kind of notions they talked about.
Mhm.
And it's like, you people are crazy. They must have done anything at the time. Did not crawl into a word film.
But Eustace did mention that he hated that picture.
Yeah,
It was the one picture in the entire house that he couldn't stand.
You think it's, I'm sure it must be, connected to the idea that the ship is related to the church. And in scripture, Jesus is often getting in the ship and teaching from the ship. And, the disciples are in the ship until Peter walks out and starts sinking, and it's
Right.
the security of being in the church body in the ship. And wondering if Eustace is, poking animosity at the church, that, that's what really is frustrating. We can't abide by the church and its beauty and its community and everything else.
A great insight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what he's probably angling at, maybe.
Well, his parents were very, very modern. He
Yeah.
describes them
Yeah.
as, wearing a certain type of underwear, it was just.
Oh, yeah. And only vegetarian.
But
So
you
it's,
can see that there was no
Yeah,
connection to any kind of church or any kind of
yeah,
a religious belief, because that's
Yeah.
how Eustace got on the ship without any collection of beliefs.
Hmm.
Nothing, as Mary said earlier, nothing aesthetic had ever happened to, he's in for it,
Mhm.
but
but also, Lewis has breath. A kid, it's Aslan's breath, but it's the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
So he gets into Narnia, not of his own will, but of the Holy Spirit. And then in that ship on the Dawn Treader, that's a great thing. It becomes his community of believers. Good insight. And the other thing is, I think Lewis was like, he's very critical of the parents because they're vegetarians. Like as if that's a terrible thing. But I think he didn't like anything progressive in terms of certain areas of his life. He was a curmudgeon in some ways. And so I think that comes through there. We talked about it last week, his home life. He lost his mother when he was 9. He prayed for her to be healed. She wasn't healed. After she died, he went in there and let him pray that she be raised from the dead. And still he'll say, people think that caused me to be atheist. He said, no, that had nothing to do with my becoming atheist. But he lost all happiness, that's what he said, all happiness of my life is gone with my mother's death. So he didn't have a positive perception. And he was, like Eustace, just an information gap. Read everything he came across, read. And that,
But he was different than Eustace that way, in that he
Yes.
was allowing that information to transform
yes,
his other worlds, right?
right, you're right.
You know, but he was a lot of similarities too.
Yes.
You're exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly.
That's
I'm sure some of the
way
guys
to,
who-
you know.
Yeah. I'm sure some of the kids who encountered Jack when he was young would easily think of him as Eustace.
It's true. Yeah.
My mother's mother died when she was 9, and she was raised by her sister who was 7 years older. It was not good. And there was another woman that came to help it. She got through it, but it was very difficult. She described it to me. That young is very hard.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's jump down to, I'm picking the things I love, sorry. 6, somebody read, number 2 on the 3rd page. This is from an essay, he wrote called The Efficacy of Prayer. So somebody read that.
And, oh, go ahead. You want to read it? Okay.
Sure, I'll read it.
Okay.
Can we believe that God ever really modifies his action in response to the suggestions of men? Where he seems to do nothing of himself which he can possibly delegate to his creatures. He commands us to do slowly and blunderingly what he can do perfectly and in the twinkling of an eye. He allows us to neglect what he would have us do or to fail. Perhaps we do not fully realize the problem, so to call it, of enabling finite free wills to coexist with the omnipotence. It seems to involve at every moment almost sort of a divine abdication. We're not mere recipients or spectators. We are either privileged to share in the game or compelled to collaborate in the work, to wield our little tridents.
That to me is one of the most insightful things that he gives. He talks an awful lot of the humility of God. And in fact, like the time when he converts, he says, even of the prodigal son came back willing, but he came kicking and resentful. How great was the humility of God's love to accept him. So here, I think in the story, there's always a task in Narnia. Every time you go, there's a task. Now, Aslan could just magically solve that, but he doesn't. He allows people to slowly, blunderingly do things. Things that take forever for us, he could do them instantly. And that happens all through Narnia. But it also happens all through our lives. Anybody want to add something there?
This reminds me of our text today, right? Can we
Yes.
believe that God ever modifies his action in response to the suggestions of men or women? In this case, the Syrophoenician woman, who says, yes, but even the dogs eat the scraps from the table of the children, you know, and Jesus like, that's excellent. Okay, I'll
Yes.
open up my ministry to Gentiles. This was in the story of the Breakfast Fellowship this morning. the message.
I like that.
But Jesus changes his whole ministry, and all of us who are Gentiles, which is probably every one of us around this table, can be thankful because of that woman that we're part of the church. Because it was only just for Jews up to that point. And it's amazing that this woman influences Jesus, God, in that way. Yeah, I find that remarkable. That God can change God's ways of doing things. Also Jonah and the whale, right?
Yeah.
God decided, I'm gonna smack the Ninevites, right? And then Jonah gets up all set because God changes God's mind and says,
Yeah.
I decided I'm not gonna destroy them, and the Ninevites were the enemies of Jewish people, and that's why Jonah wanted them, smashed. But yeah, so God can change God's mind.
Yeah. And isn't that the saddest thing, in Lewis wrote The Problem of Pain. That was one of the first things he wrote, and that's what brought him into BBC to start the talks that became Mere Christianity. But he says, if you were to ask me why I'm an atheist, I would say, look at the world. And the part that bothers me the most is that in the name of Christ, a lot of cruel things are done. And I think, for me, I think I would have a hard time being a Christian today if I thought Christianity was as cruel as some people make.
People's definition of Christianity is very different.
Back to perceptions. And it just thrills me that the perception of Jesus I have is that he reached out. The one that I keep going to is, woman, where art thou? Where art thou, accusers? The woman who was done wanting to be stoned. And she said that, remember, he reaches down and goes, neither do I. Now that was the worst of the worst in that time. And he will. And the same with the leper. That was the lowliest of the low. Have you ever watched that, The Chosen?
Yes. Like Jews.
Oh, I mean, the gentleman who plays Jesus.
Yeah. They're all really cast well.
Yeah, they are.
Peter's a great part.
Oh,
They're all good. Is it Matthew?
oh, man. Oh, he's a
That's his day. That's the feast day today, is St. Matthew.
It's today.
Yeah, that's right.
Today?
His feast day is St. Matthew's Day today. Yeah. That's why he was mentioned in the prayers that in the church.
Because I know last week when you said it was
Holy Cross Day.
the Holy Cross Day.
Yeah.
That was interesting, and only if the special day falls on a Sunday do we acknowledge it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't usually think of them otherwise.
And, I did really appreciate, when you talked about, how to meditate. Remember the cross is viewed from all times is humanity. I really like that.
I
think I've heard that. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's Pierre Mondrian. That was the artist that came up with that, not mine.
Right.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, because I don't do well meditating.
Yeah, you have to stop talking.
That's a problem.
So, man, I'm 50 years, I'm still waiting. But I love this, the omnipotence, the omnipresence, the omniscience. I always refer to it as the omni-God. But that's the concept of God, and if you impose that on Jesus, there is no change, there is no learning, but it's clear in the life of Jesus, and I think the one thing that has always struck me is on the cross, it says, Father, forgive them. These creeps that I've been trashing, you know, these self-righteous minds, Father, forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. And that's a change. And a profound change. That
But the most powerful thing there is they don't know what they do. And
yes.
C.S. Lewis talks about innocent error and innocent ignorance. So I look at some people, and I, like my family, I'm reared far right. My brother, who I love to bits, still believes that. I mean, you're gay, you're burning in hell. But that's innocent. You hear that from the pulpit, why? And if you don't have an experience that helpfully, in a helpful way, allows you to change, it's going to be there. You learned it. And I think that's what Jesus sees on the cross. People couldn't help it. They really believed it. It's innocent error and innocent ignorance.
Because that's right. If you're brought up with it.
Yeah.
If you're brought up with it, and that was just there. Time that you were young. It's hard to, you default to that, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you default to that and you have to have that.
Mhm.
Have it, right, for it to change.
Yeah.
We've known enough people here at Trinity that have
Mhm.
had that kind of thing
Mhm.
happen, and it's like. Back to your point though, about omnipotence, that's a great point. I think it's hard to get to that point to acknowledge that there is an omnipotent one. It's like, God, that's a trick. You go through your day, you go through your day, not just thinking that I have good moments, right? Yeah. Pray, do stuff that I'm supposed to do, but just not, my default is not just thinking that there's an omnipotent one. And think about myself,
Mhm.
whether.
There's also the desire, that parallel struggle that some people have. They're trying to understand why did God do this? Why did God take this love from him? Why is God allowing this? Hey, we have no freaking idea. You know, we just literally don't. And that brings you to a crossroads. Either you're gonna take the road of faith, or you're going to try to superimpose on that a knowledge. They superimpose the Bible. And the Bible to me is a 650-page Rorschach test. You know, you just put on whatever it is that you interpret it, whatever it is that you need to interpret it at that particular time. If you take that other road, you have to have the answers instead of the faith. And that's really problematic. I refer to it as I studied to be a priest for almost 7 years. But when I first entered the seminary, I realized this is the land of answers. And I evolved into a kid with a lot of questions, so it wasn't a really good match.
It's, I mean, like we talked about last one of our terms, is that life is about transforming yourself, right? And being able to get to that point. And we learn, we get a little more wisdom, but still to get to that point, so it's like you figured out some stuff that's hard for us to get.
I've been married for 50 years. I know everything.
Yeah, well, and I think as people in general, as a human being, we have a tough time sitting in mystery. We like a narrative, and even if it's a narrative that doesn't have a good understanding or a good conclusion, like okay, this is how God is, and this gives me understanding of whatever I'm dealing with, right? We want an answer. You know, to sit in the mystery is the tough part. But human beings like stories. That's why we're reading this one, and we like stories, and so our mind functions in that way. And we would create a narrative. You know, Kate Bowler, I'll share this real quickly. She had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She thought she was going to die. Was in the hospital getting treatments. Her colleague came into her and said, "Don't jump to the end." And I shared this in the sermon at some point. And she didn't know what that meant. And she thought about it, talked to the mom for a while, and she came to this conclusion. I think I understood what he meant. Don't jump to the end of the story saying, "I'm going to die, this is my life," and just live that out. As opposed to just living in the mystery of that moment. Our minds like to fill out a story, a narrative, even if it's the worst possible conclusion, as opposed to just being in the mystery of God. And that's why Richard Rohr is, I think, such a wonderful writer and you know, a theologian, is because he is a mystic. He lives in that mystery. And that's something we all can learn as people, is just don't jump to the end. Don't fill out a narrative that has a gloomy, dark conclusion.
Tell that to my husband again. All right, this next one reminds me of Pastor's service today, sermon today. Somebody read number 3 on page 3.
Nowadays, most people hardly think of prudence as one of the virtues, since Christ said we could only get into his world by being like children. Many Christians think that, provided you are good, it does not matter being a fool. That is a misunderstanding. St. Paul points out, Christ never meant that we were to remain children in intelligence. On the contrary, he told us to be not only as harmless as doves, but also as wise as serpents. He wants a child's heart, but a grown-up's head. He wants us to be simple, single-minded, affectionate, and teachable, as good children are. But he also wants every bit of intelligence we have to be alert at its job, and in first-class fighting trim. God is no fonder of intellectual slackers than of any other slackers. Anyone who is honestly trying to be a Christian will soon find his intelligence being sharpened. That is why an uneducated believer like Bunyan was able to write a book that has astonished the whole world.